Hello all of you hellions. Welcome or welcome back, whichever it may be. So for this week and many more to come, I am going away from the shower curtain. For those of you who have watched my channel for a while, know that I named my dog after two horror icons, Vincent Price and Edgar Allan Poe. He's being a lazy bones right now, but meet Vincent Poe. Say what you will about the name, I love it. I'm going to be discussing movies that star Vincent Price and are adaptations of Edgar Allan Poe's stories and poems. I already covered The Fall of the House of Usher many months back. Go check those out. For this week, I'll be discussing the movie released in 1961, of course, starring Vincent Price, Pit and the Pendulum. Heads up. There will be spoilers on both story and movie. Here we go. The short story was written in 1842. Life events that were going on with Edgar Allan Poe during that year are his young wife, Virginia, who he loved very much, started suffering from tuberculosis. Poe, incredibly distraught, started drinking heavily. He did an interview with Charles Dickens while Dickens was in Philadelphia, and he resigned from his job at Graham's Magazine. He was a book review editor. He later filed for bankruptcy. Also in 1842, Poe wrote a story titled Pit and the Pendulum. In 1843, this story was published in the annual titled The Gift, a Christmas and New Year's Present for 1843. Yeah, that's a long title. Poe's stories always had a feel of sadness and doom, and quite often they were based on events that were happening at the time or had happened in history. Pit and the Pendulum describes one person's torture during the Spanish Inquisition. The Spanish Inquisition started in 1478 and lasted until 1834. This was within the Spanish Empire. During this time, now granted, this is a very basic rundown of what the Spanish Inquisition was. People that were accused of deviating in any way from Catholicism, including converted Jews, Muslims, Protestants, and anybody accused of blasphemy and or witchcraft. Once convicted, they were publicly humiliated, tortured, and or killed, with their lands going to the crown. This was a very ugly period in history. Okay, now that I've given a little bit of background to the story, there's a little bit more. During the French Revolution, there was a place called the Jacobin Club. It was known for its radical views and violence. The story opens at this site where the Jacobin Club has been torn down and the grounds are going to be used now for a market. This didn't actually happen, but I think it's a beautiful idea. And now to the story. In 1808, a person is sentenced to death by the Spanish Inquisition. It is never specified as a man or woman, so I will just say man. He does not remember much after the sentencing, just that the judges wore black robes, which to him looked white, and that to him they appeared to be thin even to grotesqueness. The man swoons after he is found guilty of being a heretic or having religious beliefs that do not fit their own. When he wakes, he fears he is in a tomb, for he is surrounded in blackness. He also fears he is in Toledo, a city full of religious communities such as Christians, Jews, and Muslims. It was a main focus during the Inquisition. The man begins to slowly move around, arms outstretched, trying to assess the size of his cell. The walls are slimy. He assumes they are made of masonry. The floors are slimy as well. He falls hard on the floor, right in front of a pit that he surely would have fallen into had he not slipped. By dropping a piece of masonry into the pit, he discovers it is very deep with water at the bottom. He has heard of the torture at the hands of the Inquisition, including being dropped into a pit and left to die. He begins to think, what sweet rest must be in the grave. A pitcher of water and a loaf of bread is slid into the cell. The man eats and drinks, and soon loses consciousness, for the water was drugged. He later awakens, or unclosed his eyes, and was able to see the cell. The cell is about half the size he thought it to be. The walls are not masonry, as he thought, but iron plates with images of hideous and repulsive devices. The floor is stone. He unclosed his eyes to find himself strapped to a board with a long leather strap. His head and left arm were left loose so he could feed himself. He was given meat strongly seasoned to add to his thirst, but no water was provided. There are large rats coming from the pit, drawn to the meat. The ceiling was 30 to 40 feet high, with a painting of old Father Time. Instead of a scythe, he holds a pendulum, which is slowly rocking back and forth, slowly lowering toward the man strapped beneath it. For days he lay underneath the swinging pendulum, going mad. He attempts to arch his body toward it, trying to end his suffering sooner, and then a calmness takes over. There is a slight hope left in his mind. He is having thoughts that the pendulum itself may free him by cutting through the strap. However, the only part of his body not strapped is the part that would be cut by the pendulum. As the rats wait to feed upon his dead flesh, he wonders, to what food have they been accustomed in the pit? What a thought. The rats have been eating the meat left for the man and bite at his fingers as he tries to eat what is left. He then gets an idea. He stopped brushing off the rats that accumulated on his chest en masse, biting at the straps and his lips. Feeling the straps loosen, he remained still. The pendulum makes a few cuts into the man, and just in time, the rats free him. The pendulum is then pulled back up through the ceiling. Having not been killed by the pit or the pendulum, he now fears what comes next. A fissure, half an inch in width, went entirely around the prison at the base of the walls, completely separated from the floor. Through this fissure, demon eyes stared at him, gleamed with the lurid luster of a fire. He smelled heated iron as the room starts to close in on him. Just then, he hears a loud blast of trumpets and human voices. The walls recede, and he is stopped from falling into the pit by General Lasalle. The French army has entered Toledo and ended the Inquisition. This is not quite historically accurate, but has a huge impact. If you get the chance to read this story, do yourself a favor and do it. Poe really has a knack for making the reader feel the dread. And now to the movie, filmed in 1961, and again, starring Vincent Price. Right away, I am reminded of 1960's The Fall of the House of Usher. The grounds are wilted and dark. The house appears to be a Gothic castle. The furnishing, artwork, musical instruments are all so beautiful. I am a big fan of Gothic horror, always have been. A man by the name of Francis Barnard has arrived at the castle by horse-drawn carriage. The horses will not go too close to the castle that is high on a hill overlooking the ocean. It is absolutely beautiful. This castle belongs to the Medina family. Francis has come after he received notice of his sister Elizabeth's death. Elizabeth was married to the master of the castle, Nicholas Medina. There's a little old school charm here. Nicholas and his sister Catherine are the heads of the household and are referred to as Don and Doña Medina, much as in The Godfather, who was referred to Don Corleone. Awesome touch. Francis insists on staying until he can find out what caused his sister's death. The death note, which was sent 3 months after her death, was devoid of any details. It stated it was an illness of some duration and was something in her blood. Francis is not buying this. If you hear that snoring in the background, that's Vincent. Also in the castle is Maria, the maid, and Charles Leon, the doctor who cared for Elizabeth until her death. Whereas Nicholas refuses to speak of the details, Doc sheds some light. Her death was due to failure of the heart. She died of fright. Her death was inevitable, brought on by the odiousness of the castle. With much persistence, Nicholas finally tells the truth. He takes Francis underneath the house. Down here is the family crypt where Elizabeth now lies, and the room where she died. Now, Here is the part that the original story by Edgar Allan Poe comes into play. Whereas in the story, an individual is cast into a cell by the Spanish Inquisition and tortured, using multiple instruments including a pendulum. In this movie, under the castle is a torture chamber. The blood of 1,000 men and women was spilled in this chamber. Men and women who were sentenced by the Spanish Inquisition, and the tortures were carried out by Nicholas and Catherine's father, Sebastian Medina. At first, Elizabeth was not affected by the chamber. Things were great. Nicholas would paint Elizabeth every night, and she would play the harpsichord. He absolutely loved her. And then she started to visit the chamber nightly, and she began to change. She stopped sleeping and refused to eat. Elizabeth could not keep herself away. She was too sensitive to the malignant atmosphere of the chamber. Nicholas then planned to leave the castle and take Elizabeth with him. On the night of their departure, she was found down in the chamber, inside an Iron Maiden. She was released, but it was too late. Before her death, her last whispered word was Sebastian. Elizabeth's death almost completely drove Nicholas insane. It is now Catherine's turn to explain why. When Nicholas was a child, he was playing in the lower corridor, then wandered into the chamber even though it was forbidden. He hides as he hears others coming. Enter his father and mother, Sebastian and Isabella Medina, and his uncle, Bartolome. His father is giving a morbid tour of the chamber to the others, who are looking very uncomfortable. Suddenly, Sebastian flies into a rage, accusing the two of having an affair. He kills Bartolome and then tortures his wife nearly to death, but then walls her into a tomb, still very much alive. All of this while young Nicholas watches on. Understandably, this takes a direct hit on his psyche. Now, with Elizabeth's death, Nicholas swears he hears her walking the corridors, even saying his name. He is convinced, even though Doc claims it impossible, that Elizabeth was put living in her tomb. None of the others believe this to be true, even when her harpsichord is heard to be playing itself and her ring is found on it. Elizabeth's room was kept as she left it. Master craftsmen from all over the world made the furniture. The room is absolutely gorgeous. They did an outstanding job furnishing this castle. Anyway, Maria the maid heard Elizabeth's voice as she was in the room. She screams, bringing the others running. Elizabeth's room has been destroyed, and Francis finds a secret passageway to Nicholas's chamber. I've said it in multiple videos before, I absolutely love hidden passageways. All of this proves too much for Nicholas, who is already starting to lose it. So the group agree to open Elizabeth's crypt to prove she is dead. There's just one problem.
On my honor as a physician, I thought she was dead. I swear to you. True.
Doc can't believe it, for he himself announced her to be dead. She must have a disease that caused her to appear dead. Perhaps catalepsies, like in The Fall of the House of Usher. That night, during a beautiful storm, Nicholas follows a voice that's calling his name through the ever-pleasing secret passage down to Elizabeth's crypt. They meet again, but this time Elizabeth looks a little different. She chases Nicholas into the torture chamber, where due to shock and paralyzing fear, Nicholas collapses. And what have we here? Elizabeth was having an affair with Dr. Leon, and together they came up with a plan to drive Nicholas mad. Their plan backfires, however, as Nicholas now believes himself to be his father, Sebastian. As Sebastian, he sees Elizabeth and Doc as his adultering wife and brother. Doc goes over a cliff, while Elizabeth goes into the Iron Lady. Francis arrives, and he is now seen as Sebastian's adultering brother. And now, finally, the Pendulum. Not quite the same as the story. The pit actually takes up most of the room, with the pendulum swinging above an island accessed by a removable bridge. But I absolutely love the look of this dungeon. Just gorgeous. Black-robed figures with red glowing eyes are painted on the walls, depicting the judges and demons from the story. And a raven, a type of homage to Edgar Allan Poe, perhaps? Maximilian, the butler, helps Catherine get into the chamber. Nicholas is stopped, Francis rescued, just in time. And a touch of poetic justice.
No one will ever enter this room again.
This movie only took 15 days to film, and originally there was no prologue. So I was surprised to hear that when they released it to TV, they wanted to add more time, so therefore they added a prologue that I have never seen or heard of its existence until quite recently. I wasn't able to find it either. I believe that you can buy it on DVD with the extended version or the special features, but I couldn't find it on YouTube. It was also filmed years later, so the only actor from the original movie that was able to return was Luana Anders, the woman who played Catherine Medina. In the prologue, she is shown as a patient at a madhouse, and the rest of the movie were her memories. And apparently this scene features Sid Haig. I will definitely find this scene. Well, that's all I have for this video. Thank you all for watching. If you enjoy this kind of content, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Stick around for a while, and I'll see you next time.